So, you know that feeling, right? You
Yeah.
sit down, you're all set to tackle that one important task. And then, like an hour later, you kind of snap back to reality. You're staring at maybe 20 browser tabs, a half written email, maybe. And suddenly you have this really vivid memory of watching a video about, I don't know, how to perfectly season a cast iron skillet. If that sounds familiar, well, you're definitely not alone. It's actually pretty startling. There was a study found the average office worker switches tasks roughly every, what, 3 minutes? 3 minutes and 5 seconds. And the really crazy part is once you get pulled off track, it can take over 23 minutes just to get back into that focused state.
Yeah, it's astonishing, isn't it, how common that is. And look, this isn't some kind of personal failing, it's
Yeah,
really more like a modern epidemic of fractured attention.
sure.
We're living in a world that is just, well, brilliantly engineered to distract us.
Exactly. And that's precisely what we want to dig into today. This deep dive is all about figuring out why that kind of real deep focus feels like a lost art sometimes. We're going to explore the fascinating science behind how your brain actually does focus, and most importantly, hopefully equip you with a kind of toolkit. Practical stuff to train your brain, tune out the noise, and finally get those big, meaningful things done. Because honestly, it feels like one of the most crucial skills for just, success and well being today.
Absolutely. And while all this digital distraction feels very, very modern, the actual quest to understand attention, that goes way back to the beginnings of psychology, really. You take someone like William James, often called the father of American psychology, writing back in the late 1800s. He defined attention as, and I'm quoting loosely here, the taking possession by the mind of one out of what seems several simultaneously possible objects or trains of thought. And the key part, it implies withdrawal from some things in order to deal effectively with others.
Withdrawal from some things. That's such a powerful way to put it, even back then. It wasn't just about looking at something, it was about deliberately looking away from everything else, that act of omission.
Hmm. And you see that play out perfectly with something cognitive scientist Colin Cherry described in the 1950s. We call it the cocktail party effect.
Mm.
You've definitely experienced it. You're in a loud, crowded room, tons of conversations happening, yet somehow you can tune right into the person you're talking to.
Mm.
But if someone across the room happens to say your name,
Bam! Your attention just snaps right over there, doesn't it? Instantly.
instantly, it shows our brains are actually processing a lot of that unattended information at a lower level. Like you said earlier, it's like having a bouncer.
Right. A bouncer at the nightclub of consciousness.
Hmm.
Kind of checking IDs, deciding who gets in.
Exactly. So these early thinkers, they really set the stage. They showed attention wasn't just some vague personality thing, but a dynamic, measurable cognitive process, something happening in the brain.
Okay, so if we have this bouncer, or I like the spotlight analogy too, how does that actually work in the brain? Because that spotlight idea feels very intuitive. Your mind is this huge, dark stage, right? Full of thoughts, memories, sounds, sights, just tons of stuff. You obviously can't pay attention to all of it at once. So attention is like this beam of light you control, shining it on one thing while the rest is kind of dim in the background.
That's a great analogy. And neuroscientists tell us that spotlight, it's largely directed by your prefrontal cortex, that bit of the brain right behind your forehead, your executive director. When you decide consciously, okay, I need to focus on this,
Hmm.
your prefrontal cortex sends out signals. These signals basically amplify the relevant information, the thing you want to focus on. And crucially, they also dampen down the signals from potential distractions, like the phone vibrating in your pocket or that little email notification popping up.
Ah, okay. So it's boosting and suppressing. Makes sense. Is it just one kind of focus though, or are there different flavors of attention? I know psychologists often break it down, and that seems pretty important for figuring out where we struggle personally.
Absolutely. We usually talk about three main types. First, there's selective attention. That's your classic cocktail party spotlight. It's your ability to zero in on one specific thing, like reading a book, and ignore all the competing noise around you, like in a busy cafe.
Okay, selective. Got it.
Then you have sustained attention, sometimes called vigilance. This is really about endurance. Can you keep that spotlight fixed on one single task for a good stretch of time? Think about a long-distance truck driver needing to stay alert for hours, or a student trying to study for a big exam.
Yeah.
That's sustained attention.
Right, the staying power.
Hmm. And the third one is divided attention. This is what most people mean when they say multitasking.
Hmm.
It's our attempt to point that spotlight at two or even more things at the same time. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Neuroscientists generally agree you're not really dividing your attention. You're actually just switching the spotlight back and forth really, really quickly.
So it feels like you're doing two things at once, but you're actually just rapidly switching focus.
Precisely. It's task switching, not true multitasking. And that switching has costs, which we'll get to. But understanding these types is useful. When you say, ugh, I just can't focus, maybe ask yourself, is it hard to even start because everything distracts you? That sounds like selective attention. Or do you start okay, but then after 10 minutes, your mind's just gone, wandering off? That points more towards sustained attention. Knowing the difference helps find the right fix.
That's a really helpful distinction. Okay, so if our brains have this pretty sophisticated spotlight system, why does it feel so broken for so many of us these days? It's not like the spotlight itself is faulty, right? It feels more like we're living inside a giant strobe light factory.
That is a perfect analogy, a global strobe light factory, because that's essentially the environment created by the modern attention economy. In this economy, your attention isn't just valuable, it is the product. It's what's being bought and sold. Companies like Meta, Google, TikTok, they aren't primarily selling you a service. They're selling your focus, your eyeballs, to advertisers. And their platforms, they are meticulously, brilliantly engineered, often using insights from psychology and neuroscience specifically to capture and hold your attention for as long as humanly possible.
Yeah, it's actually kind of creepy when you break down how they do it, those specific features, like infinite scroll.
Oh, infinite scroll is genius in a way. There's no end, no natural stopping point like the bottom of a page. It taps right into our brain's desire for completion, for closure. But since it never ends, you just keep scrolling.
And the push notifications, they're like little external demands constantly pulling your spotlight away, right?
Yeah.
Creating this fake sense of urgency for stuff that almost never actually is urgent.
Exactly. Manufactured urgency.
Yep.
And maybe the most cunning example, those pull to refresh mechanisms you see in apps like Twitter or Instagram feeds, those were modeled directly on slot machines. They triggered the exact same variable reward system in your brain. You pull the lever or swipe down, you don't know what you'll get, maybe something interesting, maybe nothing. That uncertainty keeps you pulling, keeps you refreshing, hoping for that little dopamine hit of novelty.
Wow. Slot machines, that really drives it home. But it's not just the external stuff, is it? There's also our own minds working against us sometimes.
That's right. We also have to contend with a powerful internal source of distraction, something called the default mode network, or DMN. This is basically a network of brain regions that fires up when we're mentally at rest, when we're not focused on a specific external task. It's the part of your brain responsible for daydreaming, mind-wandering, worrying about the future, replaying conversations. That's sort of internal chatter.
Okay, the DMN.
Now, in a quiet, less stimulating world, the DMN can be great. It's where a lot of creativity and problem-solving happens. But here's the problem in our hyper-stimulated world. We've kind of accidentally trained our DMN to kick into high gear the instant we feel the slightest twinge of boredom or mental effort. Instead of letting our minds wander productively, that idle state now immediately triggers an urge to grab our phone, to seek out that quick hit of external novelty. So that internal space, which could be for deeper thinking, has become this escape hatch to digital distraction.
So we're fighting both the external strobe lights and our own brain's trained response to boredom.
Precisely. And the overall result, a state of near constant cognitive overload. Think about your working memory, the mental space where you hold information for a current task. It's like a juggler. It can only handle so many balls at once, maybe 3 or 4. Every notification that dings, every new tab you open, every time your mind jumps to the DMN, that's another ball thrown to the juggler. Pretty soon, you're not juggling effectively anymore. You're just dropping everything. It leads to that feeling of mental clutter and exhaustion.
Oh, I know that feeling. Staring at the screen, brain feels like sludge, can't even remember what I was trying to do. The drop balls everywhere. Okay, before we get into the how-to of fixing this, maybe we should quickly bust some common myths, things people believe about focus that might actually be holding them back.
Good idea. Let's do some myth busting. Myth number 1. Multitasking makes you more productive.
Yes, the classic. The badge of honor for the busy professional, right? I'm a great multitasker.
Yeah, except it's mostly a myth.
No.
As we touched on, what we call multitasking is really rapid task switching. And every single time your brain switches from writing that report to checking that email, back to the report, then glancing at a notification, you pay a price. It's called the cognitive cost. It takes real time and mental energy for your brain to disengage from one thing and then load up the context for the next thing. It's like constantly restarting a computer program. So, studies consistently show heavy multitaskers are actually less efficient. They're often worse at filtering out irrelevant information, and they take longer overall to complete their tasks. You feel busy, but you're often less productive.
So you're burning more fuel to go slower, essentially. Okay, myth busted. What's next?
Myth number 2, you just need more willpower to focus. Just grit your teeth and try harder.
Right, the pull yourself up by your bootstraps approach to attention.
Exactly. And while, sure, discipline matters, relying only on willpower is a really flawed strategy. Think of willpower like a muscle, or maybe a battery. It gets depleted over the course of the day as you use it to make decisions, resist temptations, and force yourself to concentrate. A much, much more effective approach is to actually design your environment so that you need less willpower in the first place. This is sometimes called choice architecture. So instead of constantly fighting the urge to check your phone, you just put your phone in another room. That simple act of adding friction often does way more for your focus than hours of just mentally struggling against the distraction. Make focus the easier choice.
Design your environment. I like that. Okay, one more common myth.
Yeah, this one gets repeated all the time. Myth number 3, our attention spans are shrinking. They're now shorter than a goldfish's.
Oh yeah, the goldfish myth. I've definitely heard that one.
It's incredibly persistent, but it's completely unsubstantiated. First off, the whole goldfish comparison is meaningless. They don't have attention spans in the way we understand human cognition. But more importantly, our capacity for deep focus hasn't actually vanished. Think about it. You might see a teenager who can barely sit through a 30-minute class. But that same teenager might go home and spend 6 uninterrupted hours completely immersed in mastering a complex video game. The capacity for deep focus is still there. The issue isn't that our ability has shrunk. It's that our environment has conditioned us to crave constant novelty and quick dopamine hits. We've become less willing to exert the effort required for sustained focus, because easier, quicker stimulation is always available. It's more about willingness and conditioning than lost capability.
Okay, that's a crucial distinction. It's not that we can't focus deeply, it's that we're out of the habit or the environment makes it really hard.
Exactly. And the good news there is that habits can be changed. Environments can be shaped.
Right. So let's talk about that. How do we actually move forward? How do we reclaim that focus? You mentioned focus is like a skill, like a muscle. So how do we train it? Let's get into some practical strategies.
Okay, strategy 1. Let's really embrace monotasking and use time blocking. This means getting away from those endless, vague to-do lists. Instead, you actually schedule specific blocks of time in your calendar for one specific task. So maybe it's 9:00 a.m. to 9:45 a.m. Work only on the presentation draft. No email, no other projects, just that one thing. A great way to start with this is the Pomodoro technique. Heard of that?
Yeah, the timer thing, right. Work for like 25 minutes, then a short break.
Exactly. Work with intense focus for, say, 25 minutes, then take a mandatory 5-minute break away from your screen, then repeat. It breaks down daunting tasks and trains you to work in focused bursts.
Okay, monotasking with time blocking, Pomodoro as a starting point. Makes sense. What else?
Strategy 2. You need to consciously design your focus fortress. Your environment sends really powerful signals to your brain about what behavior is expected. So you need to actively create a space, both physical and digital, that is dedicated to focus. This means doing the obvious but crucial things. Turn off notifications on your computer and phone. Close all those unnecessary browser tabs. And critically, put your phone on silent and put it out of sight. Even better, put it out of easy reach.
Out of reach. Why is that so important?
Because even just seeing your phone can trigger that urge to check it. If you have to physically get up and walk across the room to get it, that little bit of friction is often enough to make you pause and think, do I really need to check this right now? It breaks the automatic impulse.
Adding friction,
Yeah.
like making the willpower less necessary. Got it.
Focus fortress. Strategy 3. This is about directly training that attention muscle. And the most effective way we know how is through mindfulness practice. Mindfulness meditation sounds maybe complicated, but at its core, it's incredibly simple attention training. You sit quietly, and you choose an object of focus, usually your breath. You just pay attention to the sensation of breathing in and out. Now, inevitably, your mind will wander, that's guaranteed. It'll drift off to thoughts, worries, plans. The actual practice isn't about preventing the wandering. It's about noticing that your mind has wandered, gently acknowledging the distraction without judging yourself, and then calmly guiding your attention back to your breath.
And that's the training. The noticing and returning.
That's the core of it. Every single time you notice you're distracted and you gently bring your focus back, that's like doing a little mental bicep curl for your prefrontal cortex. You are literally strengthening the neural circuits responsible for controlling your attention. It directly builds your ability to choose where your focus goes.
A mental bicep curl. I love that analogy. It makes it feel very active. Okay, mindfulness.
Strategy 4 is a bit counterintuitive, but really effective. Schedule your distractions.
Wait, schedule them, like plan to get distracted.
Sort of. Instead of constantly fighting that nagging urge, should I check Twitter, what's happening on the news, which just burns through your willpower, you actually schedule specific, limited times for those activities. For example, you tell yourself, okay, I will check social media for 15 minutes, but only at 12:30 p.m. What this does is it reassures that anxious fear of missing out part of your brain. It knows it will get its fix later. That frees up cognitive resources now to actually focus on the important task at hand because you're not constantly battling that background urge.
Okay, that's clever. Give the distraction monster a specific feeding time so it doesn't bother you the rest of the day.
Basically, yeah. And finally, strategy 5. Understand and respect your energy rhythms. Your ability to focus isn't just a flat line throughout the day. It naturally ebbs and flows. Our bodies operate on what are called ultradian rhythms, cycles of energy and alertness that last roughly 90 to 120 minutes. You'll typically have periods of high mental energy, followed by periods where you need a bit of a break or need to switch to less demanding tasks. The key is to start paying attention to your own patterns. When do you naturally feel sharpest and most focused? For many people, it's the morning. Try to schedule your most important, mentally demanding deep work for those peak energy periods. And use your lower energy times for easier stuff, like answering emails, doing admin, or planning. Work with your energy, not against it.
Aligning tasks with energy levels.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so monotasking, focus fortress, mindfulness, scheduling distractions, and respecting energy. That's a solid toolkit.
Yeah.
So looking ahead, I mean, it feels like this battle for our attention isn't going away, right?
Mm.
If anything, it's probably going to get more intense. We're seeing more personalized AI, virtual worlds, all competing for our limited focus.
That's absolutely true. The forces vying for our attention are likely to become even more sophisticated, more personalized. But what's also really interesting and encouraging is that we're seeing a growing pushback against this. There's a definite rise in philosophies like digital minimalism. This isn't about rejecting technology entirely, but about being much more intentional. Using tech to support your actual values and goals rather than letting it dictate your time and attention. People are consciously curating their apps, scheduling time for real connection instead of just passive scrolling, sometimes even taking deliberate digital detoxes. Yeah, I've seen more talk about that, people trying to be more mindful about their tech use. And are there also technologies being developed to actually help us focus? Kind of fighting fire with fire.
There are, yeah. We're seeing apps designed specifically to block distracting websites or limit your time on certain platforms. There are even wearable devices being explored that might give you subtle feedback, like a gentle vibration if they sense your physiological state indicates your mind is wandering from your task. And further out on the research horizon, you have things like neurofeedback, where you learn to control your own brain waves associated with focus, and even non-invasive brain stimulation techniques being studied to potentially enhance attention networks directly.
Wow. So technology could be part of the solution, not just the problem.
Potentially. But I think it's crucial to remember that the real future of focus probably isn't going to be about finding the one perfect app or some technological silver bullet. It's likely going to be something more fundamental. It's about us as humans relearning how to manage our minds, how to be intentional, how to be, well, human in this increasingly demanding digital landscape.
Relearning how to be human in a digital world. That puts it nicely. So we started this thinking about that scattered feeling, right? Drowning in tabs, unable to finish one thing. And I think what we've really unpacked is that this struggle, it's not really a personal defect. It's most a predictable response to the world we've built, an environment designed to slice up our attention.
Exactly. And the key takeaway, I hope, is that attention isn't some mystical force you either have or don't. It's a real physical process happening in your brain. That spotlight analogy. It's real. And crucially, you can learn to control that spotlight. Focus is a trainable skill, like strengthening a muscle. It takes practice, using strategies like the ones we discussed, monotasking, shaping your environment, mindfulness. But it is trainable. That lost art isn't lost forever. It's just buried, and we need to dig it out.
And reclaiming it, reclaiming that focus, it feels like reclaiming agency over your own thoughts, your own mind, which, when you think about it, is fundamental. It's the bedrock for learning anything new, for creating anything meaningful, for connecting deeply with people, for doing that kind of work that actually feels satisfying and purposeful.
Absolutely. It's the foundation.
Yeah.
So maybe as a takeaway for this week, We'd invite you, the listener, to just become a curious observer of your own mind. Start noticing where your attention spotlight tends to go naturally. When does it feel sharp, steady, locked onto what you chose? And when does it feel flickery, jumpy? When does it get pulled away by distractions, internal or external?
Just noticing the patterns without judgment, just observing.
Exactly, because understanding those patterns, understanding your specific attention habits and triggers, that really is the first essential step towards gaining more control, towards mastery. Just by consciously paying attention to your attention, you're already engaging in a powerful act of self-awareness. You're strengthening that focus muscle right there.
Paying attention to your attention, that's the starting point.
It really is. Because ultimately, especially now, in this age of constant, overwhelming noise, choosing what you pay attention to, that is how you choose the shape of your life.